Welcome to Building Connections, a podcast from VPO. I'm your host, Laura Nee. Today I'm joined by Andrea Rutledge, President and CEO of the Construction Management Association of America, CMAA. Andrea has led the organization for over 8 years, and her path here is anything but ordinary. She started in theater, spent 6 years at the White House, and eventually found her way into the construction industry through association leadership. In this conversation, we talk about where the industry stands today and why Andrea sees this as such an exciting time. We get into the labor shortage, the role of technology on job sites, and the credential programs that are helping the next generation grow their careers. And since Andrea has announced her retirement this summer, we talk about the marks she's left on the profession and what comes next, which may or may not involve fly fishing. Let's get into it. Thank you, Andrea, for coming on to the Building Connections podcast. We really appreciate your time and your visit to the Pittsburgh area.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great.
Best part about my job.
Yes, we're going to talk all about your job in a moment. So what I wanted to do is sort of frame up your career, if I could.
Sure.
Kind of get an idea of how you got your start.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have sort of a unique background for the construction industry, which I know we've talked about. So I wanted to have our audience kind of get to know you.
Sure.
And then I want to talk about where you see the construction industry today, and then maybe a little bit about where you see it in the future.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about, you say a lot about the people and how important the people are in addition to the work we do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to hear a little bit about how the technology, there's a lot of discussion about AI, and I don't want to necessarily focus on AI, but also just the integration or, systems and technology that are out to support the construction industry. Mm-hmm. And then, you have officially announced your retirement from CMAA. So I want to hear from you, what kind of impact do you think you had in the last 8+ years? And then maybe some closing remarks of things that you would like to leave with your successor, and where you see the industry headed.
Sure. Where should we start?
Let's start at the top.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about how you got involved with CMAA. I know you started actually in the theater and the fine arts.
In the fine arts, yeah. So I tell people that it's always important to think about where you started. And for me, the very first job I ever had for which I got a W-2 was being a summer camp counselor in a residential summer camp. And so that very first experience introduced me to mission-driven organizations. And that just stayed with me forever. So I had this sort of long and winding road that started with undergraduate degrees in theater and history, and ultimately a graduate degree in theater. And I thought I was going to be an actor, and then I thought I was going to be a director, and then I thought something's not right about this. And so I ultimately went. That's how I ended up at the White House, sort of the long, windy way to the White House. But that story of getting that first job in the executive office of the president is a really important story to me, because I think it's an important story for other people. I was quote unquote recruited for that job because I had a great mom who said, these are the people you need to know. And so I introduced myself to some people in DC, and I got this phone call, months later. And I still remember it. It's, hello, my name is Bruce Overton. You don't know me, but I got your resume from Betty Hale. Well, Betty Hale was one of the people my mother had said I should go talk to. And so...
Convenient.
Yeah. So I went to that interview. They offered me that job, and I stayed in the executive office of the president and the White House office for 6 years. But it's a really good reminder that you never know where those connections are going to come from, or how they're going to get made down the line. And
how do you think that job prepared you for where
I ended up?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I learned in that job was the power of problems, that the problem solving, the skills needed for problem solving are pretty similar, and you can apply them in all sorts of environments. So I was solving them to my last assignment there, I was solving them around administrative operations for the White House, right? My mother and I used to joke that I was in charge of all the things that started with P: pens, pencils, paper clips, photocopiers, printers, PCs. But it was a very high-paced environment, always working on how do we solve this problem? How do we solve this problem? And what I took from my acting education was partly how do we solve this problem, but also asking the question, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? Let's focus on what you're trying to accomplish, and then we'll figure out what's the way to get there. We used to say sometimes people would come to me with a problem, and they would be in the middle of their problem, and what I would have to do is walk them back to the beginning so that we could understand the objective first and then identify the solution. So after literally burning myself out on the White House, I spent some time in higher education where we were also problem solving, but we were not having to problem solve at the speed that you have to in the political environment. And it took me a while to slow down and to understand that, yes, we had to have a solution, but it didn't have to be in the next 20 minutes. It could be tomorrow. Or it could even be next week. Or even
not for the next speech.
Yeah, it could be after graduation. We had the time was a little more elastic. And when I came back to Washington in the very early 2000s, I found my way into association management, and that for me is where it all came together. Right, I had in the government, I had learned about finances, and I had learned about congressional research, and I had learned about how to, get a contract for a photocopier lease. I had, I had a chance to observe people solving really big, sticky world level problems. And I really had a chance to kind of just, it's sort of for me where it all clicked together. And I was in mission driven organizations.
Yeah.
So that's when I went to the AIA, from the AIA to the accrediting board, from the accrediting board to CMAA.
And so what brought you to CMAA, specifically in the construction industry?
In the construction industry. Well, I had spent, obviously, a lot of time in architecture world. And one of the things that I found really attractive, not just about the association as a professional opportunity, but also about the people I met in the search process, was, their real commitment to relevance and advancing the profession and deepening the understanding of what it is program and construction management professionals do and what the value is of that work across the built environment.
I heard you say a quote, and I have it written down, that you had a mentor that said moving into this position is a way to save and change lives.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about what that meant.
Well, I personally am not saving and changing lives, but construction management professionals are contributing to the built environment, and the built environment is saving and changing people's lives. It's safer roads, it's new bridges or replacement bridges. I drive under a lot of bridge replacement projects. It's hospitals, it's schools that have
supports the community.
It supports the community. It's it's churches, it's places of worship and faith. It's community. It's things you can't see, right? It's underground utilities.
Yeah. It's a sustainable business for sure.
Absolutely, and the real kind of personal commitment to success that I witnessed in the people that I met during the search. I thought, this is, I get it, and I want to be a part of it.
And do you remember life before it? Probably not.
I don't really.
Almost a decade of your life.
Yeah,
you've contributed to the industry.
I was thinking about this the other day. Odd bits of memory come back, right?
Yeah.
And I had to stop and realize how long ago it was that I was with the NAAB part of my role there was regularly attending the meetings of NAAB's Canadian counterpart. And on one of those, I got to see some great places in Canada.
Yeah.
But one of those trips, my at the time 88-year-old mother-in-law went with me, and I had to realize how long ago that was.
Yeah.
And I just thought, it's been a long time since we made that trip.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, there was life before, but it's really important to be in the moment.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed it.
And, I'm sort of the same in that I call myself a super fan of the construction industry because I don't actually run projects. I support the tech that supports the projects, right? But, my dad was an engineer, and I'm very familiar with how the engineering community thinks and works. And I think even in my position on the local CMAA board, the supporting the engineers, highlighting them for what they focus on, that's really what you're talking about, the important stuff, and helping support them in other ways because I relate to you, our personalities are a little bit different than how they think. It's very logical. People who are engineers, like facts and figuring out problem solving, right? And so sometimes they can benefit from working with people like us who have a different side of things. And I think that having watched you in your career, you're helping support them being better people. And, your skill set really helps support them to be the best that they can be. And,
Thank you.
They need people who will take them out of their shells a little bit. And hey, that's speaking from experience because, engineers are near and dear to my heart, and I haven't stepped away from them, even from, having grown up with my father. So I think that your background really does help support the industry. And I think you're also, what I recognize about how I've observed you is that you like to help. And, engineers are great people, and the industry is full of really a lot of talent. So we'll get into the people side of the business in a little bit. But let's move on to where you see the construction industry itself. You talk to a lot of different people. You travel a lot. You go visit. You're here in Pittsburgh today to visit and present to our local chapter tomorrow. But what do you feel is the pulse of the industry? I feel like it's the most exciting time in the construction industry in my tenure of almost 30 years. I've never seen it thrive so much as it has. But, what's your take on it?
So, I agree. I think this is a remarkable moment in time. And it's sort of been, to some people will say, oh, we've always known it was going to be like this. And some people will say, oh my God, how did we get to this? And I think sort of, it's sort of been incrementally kind of moving up on us. And I think that one of the things that one of the opportunities that is in front of us is building, I'm not going to say better because that implies that there's something not good, but more, let's call it more comprehensive relationships between contractors, designers, service providers, subcontractors, owners, end users, the universe of stakeholders.
The ecosystem of construction.
There's an important opportunity to get better at schedule and price predictability, right? To the extent that you can control the weather, right? Or what you find underground, what the LiDAR didn't tell you was there, or et cetera. But the more you can have a conversation from the beginning, this is one of the things that's I find is really near and dear to my heart is let's put the whole team. It doesn't have to be integrated project delivery in order to put the whole team together from the start. And the more decisions that get made before you're procuring construction, before you're procuring anything, but the more decisions that can be made by the collective in pre-design and design
construction.
Yeah,
for
the
sure.
less likely you are to have a very expensive new idea or problem to solve
Rework.
at the end,
Yeah.
right? Or, God forbid, change orders, right?
Yeah.
Of significance.
Right.
And so building those relationships is really important. And I understand the mindset of, well, we don't want to pay for that now. We want to pay for it later. And I think, well, yeah, if you don't pay for it now, you are going to pay
You
for it
are
later.
more.
In an unexpected and slightly more expensive way. All of that said, I think that, communities want better infrastructure. Patients want modern, reliable, cutting edge healthcare. They want it to be accessible. Communities want good school buildings in which students learn because the building was designed with student learning, designed and built with student learning in mind. Communities want parks. Communities want sidewalks. Communities want their highway interchanges to be finished.
Yeah.
And so this is a really big moment to say, yes, we can do this. And I think that one of the great challenges, and it will never not be a challenge, is who's going to do all this work.
Meaning labor,
specialties, and that'll get us into our conversation about technology.
Yeah.
I was talking with somebody the other day who said, there are only so many electricians in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And right now, nearly all of them are on data center projects.
Yeah.
If you're building something else and you need an electrician, you're going to have to go get them from Illinois because they're busy. How do we make more electricians? I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, and even to expand on that, we have a client in the steel industry, and the steel industry has a bad rap for being dirty, for being dangerous.
Right.
And compared to, and if their project's right next door to Intel, for instance, that happens in Ohio and close to here in Pennsylvania, and Intel's getting all the contractors and all the electricians, all the laborers, that can affect the schedule of other companies as well.
And I also, you said something that I think is another great moment in time to say that construction, and particularly program and construction management, is a high-tech job. And, I watch parents' brains shut off when they hear someone say, well, I think your child might be interested in construction management.
Yeah.
The brains just stop. They don't hear the word management.
Right. That's true.
There was a dean, I think she's since retired. She was in the California system, Christine Theodoropoulos, and she used to meet with the school that she was the dean of had architecture, construction management, and I think maybe landscape and urban planning all in one college. She was the dean over those 4 programs. And she would meet with parents on Admitted Students Day. And she said she remember very clearly walking into the auditorium with all the construction management parents, and everybody's sort of fidgety and a little unsure about what it was their son or daughter had decided they wanted to do. And
I know.
And Christine would say, I'm pleased to welcome you to campus. Your student has made a remarkable choice. They are going to manage the delivery of the built environment. And the minute she talked about delivering the built environment, she said she could just watch the room. Everyone was like, oh. That's my student.
That sounds cool.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
So, I think that, we are at a moment in time where we can say, yes, this is a job where technology is important, where technology skills matter, and you are delivering the built environment. Yeah.
Good way to frame it. I was involved with a summer camp this summer for girls from 9th to 12th grade, and they have to write a paper to even get accepted to this summer program.
Right.
And I was one of the presenters there, and almost every girl we did one-on-one sort of interviews or one-on-4 interviews with the girls. So many of them were like, I could never see myself working in an office. I just want to be outside. I would die if I had to go to a desk every day,
Every
day in
day.
and day out. And, there's a really good opportunity for people, not just girls, but, young professionals to getting into those trades. And there's so
Absolutely.
much training, and it's actually not too far from here. The facility, they actually do the bricks, the bricklaying, and they teach the kids on how to do these, really fascinating things that these girls, you're eating it all up. But I could tell that some of them were like, yeah, but my parents aren't necessarily supporting me in my decision to want to do this, and they couldn't commit. So it's kind of a sad part of the industry too.
Yeah. We'll get there. Slowly but surely, we will get there.
So you mentioned program management versus construction management. I've heard you say that a couple of times. What does that mean to you?
So it was a conscious decision on the part of the board of directors when they went through their strategic framework design in 2021 and early 2022 that the association this is all part of the shift to let's talk about the professionals and
elevate the position,
talk about the people involved, elevating the people involved. And so the board made a strategic decision to shift that language to include program and construction management professionals to embrace the full spectrum of people who were doing this work, from the estimator or scheduler who's there on their very first day in the office to the senior vice president who's managing the relationship with an enormous public client or a private client.
Yeah.
And so that was all part of the conscious shift on the part of the board. And one of the things that we talked about was, so when we talk about construction management, we'll talk about this later. We're talking about the project life cycle, not just this part of the project life cycle, but the whole project life cycle. And when we talk about the program, we're talking about all of the individual projects that make up a scope for an owner, right? All of the train stations in Connecticut, all on one particular set of Metro North lines coming out of New York, all of the service plazas on 95 between the New York, I'm picking on Connecticut, I apologize. All of the service, because there's a really good story about that.
It too.
I know, but there's also a really good story about how they procured the construction for those when they replaced them all. Thinking about sort of more than we have to, if you're an airport, more than we have to replace this vehicle facility, to how does replacing this vehicle facility fit in with the work we need to do on the runways, replacing the concrete and the tarmac, replacing the gates in Terminal C, building Terminal F. How does all of that intersect? And then how do we plan and manage from where we are today to where we want to be 10, 15 years from now? One of my favorite memories of understanding scope of that kind of length was when I was early in the role. I was visiting with the Pacific Northwest chapter in Seattle, and they were Sound Transit, the local transit authority, was presenting, and they had the map, right, the current map, and it was okay, a couple lines intersecting in the middle. And they said, "This is where we are, and this is where we're going." And then they showed the map, the program of work for the next 25 years to get transit from where it was to where it needed to be for the region. And I thought, that's a program, right? For me, it was a wonderful visual way to think about program. And
so to your
all
point,
of that all those things still have to happen within that, right?
Right. And so program management, you're trying to reframe as it's not just a project here and there. And I thought maybe you were also alluding to the full life cycle of a project, right? From inception through planning, through closeout, and even
and
operations.
handing it off,
Right. And the asset management side of things. But, the companies that are involved with construction projects typically have a multitude of projects and very large capital improvement plan or program.
Right. Absolutely. And when we think about the future, I'm thinking about the so that was in 2000. So that was
Right.
what, 7 or 8 years ago. So what's the next 25 years look like for Sound Transit? They're all
Right.
they're already, they're like, okay, well, we did this 10 years. Now we're going to do the next 10. What's coming after that?
Yeah. And those public sectors have 5 to 10-year plans, healthcare and
Oh yeah.
higher ed, and they're
Yeah.
always thinking about, to your point, bettering the community and what can they do to support that. So.
Right.
Now let's talk a little bit about the owner's role in
Sure.
construction, because part of, I think, Construction Management Association of America is to help the owners plan and execute projects more effectively.
Mhm.
And I know that, CMAA always touts the sooner you can get involved from a construction, the sooner that you can involve construction managers in the process,
Right.
the better off your project will be. So tell me a little bit about what that means to you, and how do you convey to an owner that they should value Construction Management Association, CMAAs,
Right.
because not all owners know about CMAA.
Right.
And I would even beg to say that, CMAA is more popular in the public sector than it is the private sector. So how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah.
And what I would think that the growth plan, if I were in
Right.
your successor's shoes, would be, how can I do the same work for the public sector or for the private sector as I did for the public, and
Right.
get them to recognize the value of CMs?
So I think one of the messages that I would like to hope I've been consistent with in terms of talking with owners and owner organizations is spending some time asking them what are the pinch points, what are the problems that you need to solve in order to do what it is you need to do for the state of North Carolina or whoever. And how can CMAA help you respond to those problems? So it actually sort of takes a sort of multi-conversation, multi-phased approach to, as much as I would love to have these organizations as members, right? Let's not start there. Let's start with what is the problem that they need to solve and how can CMAA help them solve it. And what I've learned is that most of the time, not every time, but most of the time, the problem that owners need to solve is training and educating the staff that they have and developing those individuals to a new level of professionalism. And I say, okay, we've got that. We have credentials. We have the Stackable credential. We have professional development. You have
the standards of practice.
We have the standards of practice. We've got all kinds of stuff, products and programs and materials that can help you solve that problem. So let's start there. And then if that is good for you, maybe you'd like to be a member, because then all of these things become less expensive to you as an organization. We have a similar conversation around, or maybe it isn't a similar conversation around the value of that education, the value of that credential, especially once you start engaging service providers. Because if your senior director of construction services has a CMAA credential, and the lead on the team from something incorporated that you've contracted with to support you has a credential, now you have a common vocabulary. And that starts to get stuff out of the way. You're not necessarily, everyone understands that this is what we mean by critical path method. Everyone understands that this is when we talk about managing risk and we're using the CMAA body of knowledge around risk management, we all understand where that comes from and what that means. And now you are building a team.
You're really fast tracking a lot of the knowledge,
right?
And
you're now
that
exactly. You're building teams that have common understanding, common knowledge, and expertise, and as a result, you're going to have better outcomes at the end. And if you want to be a member, that'd be great.
Well, we'll talk about how we can entice owners to become members.
We'd love you to be a member. One of my favorite stories about that is I was presenting with a state highway department, and we had an hour. We took an hour and 15 minutes because they kept asking questions.
Yeah.
And I laid out all the things. Right. This is a big state with a lot of divisions and a lot of very small teams, not very close together, right? So they all kinds of things they were looking for in terms of education and community and all that kind of stuff. So I laid it all out, the PCM course, the Stackable, all of it. And they were they were writing notes. And it was like 10 minutes before we left when the head looked at him, he said, well, this would all be a lot less expensive if we were members, wasn't it? And I said, yes, sir, it would. I'd be happy to talk to you about that.
The check is in the mail.
And for me, that was the moment that crystallized it. Let's talk about what problems you're trying to solve and how can CMAA be part of the solution. We don't want to be mad at adding to the problem. We want to be part of the solution. And then we'll take it from there. Let's build from there.
And so let's move into the people side of things, but also the process that CMAA provides and the credentialing.
Sure.
How did you develop that program and the famous slide and
the famous stair-step slide?
Yeah, we can probably impose it into this video, right? But how did you come up with that series of credentials? And who you're attracting along the way, because people can get intimidated if they think it's going to take them 6-8 years to get.
And it doesn't, hardly. So the credential suite, if you will, that we have today actually started with the CCM. That was the very first credential developed by CMAA, and that was in the 90s. Then sort of later in the 90s, maybe in the early 2000s, the CMIT as a single unique experience was created. And that was built around the Capstone, which is a publication. And so there it was. So there we were. So, and this had the sort of, we need something else.
Right.
And we need something in the middle here. Had started kind of when I started. And I had the opportunity when I started to do a little reorganizing within the association to bring credentialing and professional development under a single vice president with all the appropriate safeguards in place because the CCM has a accreditation. So the Board of Governors, which is the body responsible for the credentials, the CMCI Board of Governors, and the Board of Directors all agreed that we need to do something about the middle. And so the proposal came forward from a small working group got together in 2018. They proposed converting the CMIT from this single standalone into the 4-part Stackable. And then there would be a mid-career credential. So they built the Stackable credential. We launched it in the pandemic.
Wow.
And we had a group of people we basically asked some people if they would try to break it. And so they were working, where are the pinch points? Where is it not making sense? Where is it not moving along? They all moved through it. And then, so that was 2020. So then the new task group came together and put together the CACM, the Certified Associate Construction Manager, and that launched in 2022. And what we have seen, so 2025 was the first year that the first people who earned the CACM would be required to renew it.
Mm.
And so it was a great moment in time to look at what in higher education they would call persistence to graduation. So what is the average amount of time that's taking people to move through each level of the Stackable and then into the CACM, and then from the CACM into the CCM? So at first we were all sort of like, oh, well, our if you just look at the numbers, it looks like, well, the people aren't renewing their CACMs because they've finished the exam and they're now CCMs.
Right.
So it's working.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think and the thing about the Stackable is that it is self-paced. So if it takes you,
because you have to be working,
you have to be working,
the test.
right? You can't just take the test. And so if you have, if all the stars align and all of your professional assignments are lined up exactly right with each of the 4 levels, you can move through it relatively quickly.
Yeah.
But if you change employers, or you decide to start a family, or you decide to take a break and hike the Alps for a week, I mean, it's designed for you to run through it, to work your way through it on your own time, not on your own time, but at your own rate.
And I love how you combine it to the conferences, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are going to be at the conference, you can also take the training the days before.
Yep, absolutely. So
great.
the CMIT, so we have over 17,000 people with CMCI credentials.
Yeah.
The CMIT is our fastest growing. Something like 8,000 people are somewhere in that pipeline for the CMIT. Many of them at the beginning, but still moving through. People are moving. The minimum responsible in charge requirement for the the CACM is 1 year, and we're seeing people pick up those next 3, and move on to the CCM.
So let's talk about how owners can benefit from putting that into specifications, or how they can mandate that people have their accreditations in order to work for them. What do you tell an owner?
What I tell an owner is that I completely understand this is where this government experience comes back to be really helpful.
Yeah.
I understand that especially public agencies have to be fair. So it is difficult for a public agency to require something, especially something
Even
that's
an accreditation.
Well, it is less difficult for them to require a license. Architects, engineers are licensed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So there's a pretty straightforward case for licensed professionals where that's appropriate. It's harder. It's a harder case to make, and it's not just for construction. It's for all sorts of other credentials. What I say is the extent to which owners can indicate preferences for CMCI credentialed professionals. That's
so it's
great.
In the wording.
It's in the wording, and I will say some of the best success that we have seen, especially recently, at preferences has been from chapter advocacy. It was a group in the Baltimore chapter that worked really hard with the state of Maryland to get the CCM preference in all of the RFPs for the bridge replacement.
Well, you'll be happy to know Pittsburgh Water does the same thing here.
Yeah, so. And we've seen the Hawaii chapter's done a great job as well. So, there's every time,
there's hope.
Yeah, every time we get another one. And I think, one of the things that I think is really valuable is understanding that there are owners come in all shapes and sizes, right? You can have.
Well, and that's the one thing on a private side, you can do anything you want. I mean, in a sense too. So that's helpful. That I think we just need to get in front of, private sector too. And you maybe have some success there also because they don't have as many constraints.
Right. We've seen what's been really interesting is the private owner organizations that have joined CMAA each have been have come for slightly different reasons.
Yeah.
Some are interested because they see value in the professional education.
Yeah.
Some are interested because they want to get all their people certified. Some are interested because they hired somebody who came from someplace else where
you said you need CMAA.
You need CMAA. You need all these people who all these people who report to me need to go through this program. So yeah,
that's great. So let's talk about the young professionals.
Yes.
What can we do? Where have you seen? I love at the conferences you always have a session specifically to really reward the young professionals. So, what in your opinion can we do to further continue encouraging them to get involved and just excel in their career and get those credentials as well, but on the younger side?
Where we've seen real success in terms of, so I'll start with credentials, where we've seen real success is where supervisors build it into performance development and annual performance plans.
That's a great idea.
You're here. Welcome to my company. Welcome to your new job. Your professional development, not only do you have to achieve all these particular metrics and goals for your job within this company, but you also have to do this professional development work. And it starts with, here's your CMIT application, please fill it out. So we've seen that work really well. And so when managers and supervisors take an interest in seeing young people move through the Stackable onto the next level, we've seen real success. In terms of the association, we actually adaptively reused a program from another association to build out our Emerging Leaders program.
Yeah.
And that program is designed to do three things. One, to develop younger and mid-career professionals as leaders in their organizations, to encourage them to be interested in the national organization. And then we always tell the chapters they came out of, if they come from a chapter, oh, by the way, so-and-so just finished the Emerging Leaders program, and I see you have a vacancy on your board.
Yeah.
So we have, so I personally know of 3, actually, I think might be 2 in Baltimore. But there are individuals who were in some of the early cohorts of that program who are now on their chapter boards. One's a chapter president.
That's great.
Yeah. And so we did it not purely, but mostly with a view towards identifying, recruiting, and developing young people to support not just the profession, but to support the association.
Yeah. And now we have a seat, dedicated to the young professionals and encourage them at the chapter level too.
Yeah, the more...
And they bring such a different
oh my gosh,
viewpoint into what kind of events and resources we should do to attract other local young people.
Yeah.
Which, not everybody realizes, who's in the traditional chapter board seats. So
Why aren't they coming to the golf outing? Because they don't play golf.
Right.
But if you had
they want a social hour and
if you had a darts tournament or I don't know. Axe throwing.
Yeah.
Karaoke.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So let's talk tech.
Let's talk tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your viewpoint on tech today and where you see it moving forward?
Sure. Well, you can't live without it. Can't live with it and can't live without it. Here's what I think I learned a really important phrase around technology, particularly with respect to AI, but not exclusively.
Yeah.
Which is the importance of a human in the loop.
Yeah. And
so that I keep coming back to that. People, they're going to replace us. It's going to replace us. It's going to replace us. No, but it is going to change how you spend your time, right? It's going to change. You, the individual, have to be able to know whether or not AI got it right. You can't just say,
outsource it.
You can't just say, yeah, here,
Yeah.
Calculate X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
You better check to make sure that it got that. We joke in the office. We were preparing, my colleague was putting together the annual digital holiday card. And so what he wanted was a snow person for every person we have in the staff wearing a CMAA True Blue polo shirt with our names on them. And he kept prompting, and he would get 22 and 24, and the names would be misspelled, and some names were conflated together. About the only thing it got right was the blue CMA polo shirt. So, that's a small humorous example, but it's I think it's just so important. And I think, yes, are there rebar tying machines? Yes. Do they make the job site safer? Probably. Do they get it done faster? Yes, but it still has to be inspected. Yeah. You can't. I don't know about you, but I've been watching the Olympics, and I've been having almost as much fun watching the drones.
Yeah, I know. They can't keep up with the luge people.
I know. Well, and who can? But I've been thinking about,
the technology
of that. We were watching. This was last fall. I don't know what playoff we were watching, but I said, they don't need the blimp anymore.
No.
Richard, my husband, said, "What do you mean they don't need the blimp anymore?" I said, "No, they can do all these aerial shots now with a drone the size of our coffee table."
And imagine that on a construction job.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a guy's actually going to be presenting at Focus next month on camera usage on job sites, and he said it's really simple. You basically spend a couple $100 on a really good portable digital camera.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a pretty robust selfie stick, and you get a piece of software. And every day at o'clock or 2 p.m, whatever, you scan and you download it, and you scan and you download it. And so when someone says, "Yeah, we were behind, we didn't get the drywall until the 23rd," you go back to the 23rd and say, "Oh, really? All the drywall was installed on the 23rd." So they've cut claims by 40%. That's a great use of technology.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, someone has to make some decisions about what they're looking at, right? And I think, we talk about this, other association executives in associations in the built environment, and I talk about this often, that we're now asking people, professionals, to have a set of skills that they may not have learned in college. And it's all around decision making, right? It's all around, is this right? How do I know? If it isn't, how do I make the change? Prompt writing for AI is really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
That's why it's going to change the way people work.
It's going to change the way people work, because they're going to have to
You have to learn how to prompt. You have to control the computer.
You have to control the computer. And you have to, you're always saying, what do I think about this? Am I confident that this is right?
I see AI, tools like Claude and Gemini and Copilot. It's really like a calculator. Yes, you could sit there and do long math, but why?
But why?
Right?
Right. Like, yeah, please.
You have a tool right in front of your face. You know, why are you not embracing it? Because you could do things faster and, I think, a better outcome. And I think if people can just think of it that way, it's just a tool.
It's a tool.
Right?
It's a tool. It's a really powerful, really sophisticated tool. And if you put too much information in your prompt, you will get the most bizarre answers back. You will not get in an effort to be specific, you will get mush.
Oh, I know. And, in the construction industry, you mentioned drones. I mean, and the other thing that I really appreciate is the dangerous tasks that somebody, like a human, used to have to do can now be replaced, or a mundane task can be done by, you can use your people for higher level tasks.
For higher level
work. And
use
the robots and the hardware for, things that people don't necessarily want to do.
Right.
And
You can
get a better quality of life,
right,
which
right.
I think technology should be really about,
Right.
is improving life.
Yeah, I mean, so we've all just lived through this intense snow and cold
Right.
in DC, and in DC there have been some pretty severe water main problems. Oh, now it's all underground,
Yeah.
and you used to have to send someone down there to find that out.
Yeah.
Now you can send a piece of fiber optic cable,
Yeah.
and it will send a picture back to you and say, "Oh, I guess that's where the hole is." We do not need to dig up the whole street to find it. We just
And
it's over
saves
there.
cost.
Saves cost. It saves interruption. It
Yeah.
saves sort of all the things.
My world, looking at the systems side of things, what we are recognizing and sort of advocating for is if unfortunately, it's the only industry that I know where everybody's working towards the same goal, but they don't work for the same company, right? It's not corporate America.
Right.
And you have all these contracts between the contractor, the designer, the subcontractors, and the owner, and the CM is also involved too. So each of them have their own systems. And therefore, data is unfortunately duplicated, triplicated,
Or
even
lost.
worse, right? Right, and or lost in translation from one entity to another because there's no seamless integration.
Right.
So, we're trying to solve that problem and really reduce or increase efficiencies, but starting from the owner all the way to the subcontractor and streamlining the data flow of information so that there's less human error and risk of loss of data, to your
Right.
point. And, I really think that in order to solve the problem, there's a lot of software that can help designers, that can help contractors, but there's really not a lot of software for the CM slash, owner's rep or owner
Right.
that I think that's what you really have the opportunity to have construction cost less, is if you can have everything in a streamlined fashion or
Mhm.
a system so that the data flows from one system to another. So
Yeah.
that's sort of
And what I've seen, especially in the Project Achievement Award winners of the
Yeah.
last few years, is that is an area, particularly in the Goochland Elementary School, which won last year,
Mm.
that it's that let's get all the data using the same markers, using the same definitions, using the same, I don't know, whatever they were using, but a light bulb is a light bulb is a light bulb, and doing that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And that was one of the contributing factors to saving quite a bit of money
Right. I
on
mean,
that school. So
I think that's the best way. And I think you said, to your point earlier, the more you focus on the design and the
everything that
pre-construction
happens
phase,
first, yeah,
the better off you're going to be. I used to teach scheduling. We used to always say, 75% effort can be spent on design, 25% on construction. It will go so much more smoothly. But
Yeah.
everybody's so quick to want to have it done that they get started and then they have to rework.
Yeah,
and then change
we're working
orders.
on a series. Yeah, we're working on a series of articles and podcast recordings that take the McClamey curve, which we've all seen, right?
Mhm.
It's that curve that shows if you divide it, you mark it across the phases of construction, and it shows, ability to influence everything, the maximum
Yeah.
opportunity to influence everything, and how that declines over the
Mhm.
time.
Yeah,
And
for
then
sure.
across it, you have the expense of changing it,
Mhm.
right? Which is very low at the beginning and very, very high at the
Very.
end. And so it's called the McClamey curve, and we're doing a series of conversations with individuals who are willing to tell the story
Hmm.
of, tell us about a time when you came in way over here
Right.
and you're on this end of this cost and influence, cost of change.
Yeah.
And way down here,
Yeah.
right, on the ability to influence the change. And then tell us about a time when you were way over
Right.
here at the beginning and you could influence all of this at the best moment in time in the life cycle of the project to make that
Yeah.
flow more smooth.
What we do is we have a a lessons learned
Mm-hmm.
module, but we encourage people to track as you go, not wait till the end of
Not
the
wait till the end.
project,
Yeah.
right? Because it's fresh in your mind
Mm-hmm.
and you have a better chance of capturing more detail while it's happening. And then you can obviously learn for that for the next project. And
Right.
so
Yeah.
technology should
Technology.
be a help. All right, so let's get to the fun stuff. Let's talk
Sure.
about your legacy.
Oh,
Right?
ugh.
You've announced officially that you are retiring at
Mm-hmm.
the end of July.
At the end of June.
June, okay. And so tell me what you're most proud of over these last almost a decade of
Yeah.
work in the construction industry at CMAA.
So there are a lot of things I'm proud of. I'm really proud of the way the board has worked over the last 8.5 years to be thoughtful and forward-looking and strategic, to surrender their individual egos, what's good for my company, what's good for my company, into what's the best decision that needs to be made for CMAA. I'm really proud of the way that we took the legacy of the past and said, okay, what is it with the history? What are the foundational values, of the core principles of the organization? Now, what's a contemporary expression of those core values? And
Modernizing it.
well, not
maybe.
even partly it's modernizing it, but also it's saying, okay, this the importance of education and credentials was absolutely essential to the founding of the organization.
Mhm.
Okay, what does it look like 40 years later?
Mm.
How do we express that in modern terms?
Yeah.
Right. And how do we express, so CMAA essentially claims its founding year is 1982. The very first thing that the founders of CMAA did was to write the first edition of the Standards of Practice. Within the first 5 years of the founding of the organization, they had written that. And so that body of knowledge, we don't want to leave it in 1986.
Right.
We certainly haven't left it in 1986.
No, not at all.
But what does sustaining and developing a body of knowledge look like today? And what's in that body of knowledge compared to what it was 40 years ago? What is what does learning look like? How do we use in-person learning, virtual learning, asynchronous online learning, synchronous online learning? How do we use all those tools to continue to offer professional development that's meaningful to the recipient and that contributes to their success as professionals?
What I love about the standards of practice and just what CMAA puts out from a materials perspective is it's not just one person's opinion. It's a set of experts
It's a set
in
of
the
experts.
industry.
Yeah.
And, everybody can, like we talked about before, it's a fast track way to know the right way to manage your projects.
Right. Are you stuck?
You
Try
don't have to
chapter
figure it
3.
out all on your own,
You
right?
don't have to figure it out.
It's in the book.
Is it right? It's in the book, and it gives you a way to say, okay, this is the best practice, but these are my circumstances.
Right.
So we used to say, when I took studied for and took the Certified Association Executive exam, it was always what's the right answer, what's the best answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what the Standards of Practice does, is it helps you work your way through. Okay, well, the right answer is this, but we have all these circumstances that make that not an option. So what's the best answer? So here's a way to guide yourself through it. I've always been really uncomfortable with the idea of legacy, right?
No.
Because it's not about me. It never is.
Well, you definitely had an impact, though.
Well, thank you.
Right. So you should celebrate the impact that you had for over almost a decade. So,
well, thank you.
And look at the membership increase. I mean, that's 30%. What I attested to, right? That's the sign.
That's the sign. What are the signs of a thriving organization?
Right.
Well, the membership is going up. The number of credentials are going up. The bank balance is going up. all the quantitative markers are going in the right direction, and there's opportunity out there. And
Is there any expansion opportunities you see? Are you working on the international market? I mean,
so international work is really tricky because we don't want to be, hello, we're from America, we're here to fix your problem, right? That's just,
right.
yeah, we don't want to do that. And there is a really robust profession in outside the United States. But going back to what we talked about earlier, they call it something else. So one of the
Terminologies.
one of the difficulties, one of the adventures of engaging with international organizations is, okay, let's do a table setting on, this is what we mean. What do you mean? This is what we mean. This is what do you mean? So internationally, we're seeing a couple. I'm seeing a couple of things. One is that the international community of professionals wants to be connected to each other. I think that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a variety of ways that happens. Many of them are virtual because of time zones and distance, right? That's fantastic. The next thing I see is that there are certain markets where there is not a big tradition of this profession. So there's a desire to, but individuals see a need. So there's a desire to build the skill set and the knowledge base in that particular community or culture. Then we have, on the other hand, companies, private companies that do this work that are the only people in their region that do the work. And so they're looking for a community.
Yeah.
And so there's a part of me that says, well, we can help you form your own association, or we could assign you to the New England chapter. It's only a 4-hour time zone away.
Right.
So it's really tempting to say, well, how are we going to start a chapter in Europe? What I want to say is, let's figure out what's already there. And who can we work with?
And what problem are you trying to solve?
And what problem are you trying to solve?
Like you said in the beginning.
Yeah. Let's be good neighbors to each other and share knowledge and experience and education when we can. And we'll take these one at a time.
So what one piece of advice do you have for whomever your successor shall be?
Well, I was thinking about this question because you gave it to me in advance, and I keep defaulting to a couple of things that my mother always believed about groups, especially groups like associations or task forces or whatever, any kind of group, that you're always bringing new people into the circle, and to some extent, you're always starting over, which doesn't mean you're going back to the beginning, but bringing new people into the group gives you the opportunity to say, I wonder, I hadn't thought about it that way. But also, there's an obligation to say, okay, here's the history. These are the values that matter. What's the next contemporary expression?
Well, you get to build upon something you've already built on it, but bring maybe a new perspective.
Someone else is going to have an opportunity to build on what we've done over the last 8.5 years. I would say the other two pieces of advice. One, my husband gave me when I started at CMAA, which was, if you're not uncomfortable for the first year, you took the wrong job.
Yeah.
And the other is, which I don't always follow my own advice, but is to listen more than you talk. There's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of embodied wisdom in the room. Give it a chance to surface.
That's a good leadership skill, I think, in general. But yeah, especially somebody new who's you have to sort of almost absorb what's there before you try to change it.
Right. And we there was the John Graham, may he rest in peace, was the president and CEO of the American Society for Association Executives for a long time. And in the darkest days of the pandemic, lockdown, organizations losing money, everything, for many associations, the lockdown happened at exactly the wrong time in their budget year or their program year. And people were coming to John saying, well, what about the association? And he would say, well, if you've seen one association, you've seen one association. And I every now and then I have to say, yes, right. John was right. Every association has many things in common with other associations and many things that are unique to it. And while you can bring the ideas and the experience and the sort of sense of time and order that you may have developed in another association into your next association role, it's not going to be the same.
Everything's unique.
Everything's unique.
So anything that we haven't talked about that you're passionate about or would like to say that we haven't really surfaced?
Oh, I would just say, I would only say that we were doing some retrospective work for the board a few months ago, and part of that was looking at conferences, and not so much looking at I was not looking at session programs or where they were. I was looking at the pictures that were taken of the education sessions while they were happening. And so I came up with one. I think it must have been taken in the year that and fall conference was in Orlando. And it is, I mean, hotel conference rooms are what they are, but it was a long, skinny room and it was rows of chairs. And on this side, at the front of the room, there was a platform and there was a table. And I looked at, all the rooms were classroom setting. And then I looked at the people and sitting in those chairs. And they were mostly male. And they were in suits and ties. And they were, I'm going to say they were majority white, but from the way the picture's taken, I couldn't, right. And then I pulled out a picture from Nashville. And the room is set in rounds.
People are standing because they were so full.
People are standing because they were so full, but the room is set in rounds. The rounds are full. The presenters are not just sitting at the table talking. They are holding the microphone and walking around, or they are gesturing towards the screen. People are raising their hands. People are chattering with one another at their tables.
There are a lot more exercises too.
And they're dressed more comfortably. There's a lot more business casual. I don't think I saw any neckties.
Yeah.
It's a lot younger. And
a lot younger.
A lot younger. And there are more women.
Females.
There are more women and people who are people from underrepresented groups are in the room just looks better. It's brighter. It's cleaner. It's more colorful. It's more, people are more engaged in the conversation. And there's just a sense of activity and enthusiasm that I saw in the photograph. And I thought, we've come a long way.
Then I think that's your impact. That's maybe a good way of saying the impact that you've had over the years, right? Is that you changed the narrative.
We changed.
And the collaboration, maybe rather than asynchronous conversation to collective collaboration.
Yeah. Well, the proof will out, but maybe we changed the culture.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, Andrea, I really appreciate you spending the time.
Oh, it's been
today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And I feel very fortunate that I caught you in this period of your life. One, I guess, last remaining question is, of course, what will you be doing with all of your free time?
Well, so the conventional wisdom is to make no decisions for 6 months. I have, however, made maybe 3 decisions.
Okay.
I have been asked by ABET, which is the accrediting board in engineering technology, among other things, to serve on a task force to support their strategic planning. My husband and I have decided that we're going to spend the month of September in Michigan, where we have a family cottage on Lake Michigan, and I signed up for fly fishing school.
Well, good luck with that.
Well, thank you.
Well, as always, we really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And, having serving as a board and a board member in our local chapter of CMAA Three Rivers. It's a pleasure, and thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Where we will be talking to a live audience tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And get to hear all of your advice there too.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's been a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great conversation. A few things that really stuck with me. Andrea's belief that the built environment saves and changes lives. Her view that technology is a powerful tool, but you always need a human in the loop. And her advice for the next leader at CMAA. Listen more than you talk. Andrea, thank you for your time and for everything you've given to this industry. We wish you all the best in your next chapter. That's it for this episode of Building Connections. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe and share it with somebody who'd find it valuable. Until next time, keep building better together.